Luis. I covered a Pharr Bridge board meeting yesterday. You gave the latest statistics on how things are going. And in terms of volumes of crossing the bridge, trucks, cars, it's going well.
Absolutely, Steve. You know, since 2024, we were growing at a pace at about 3% month to month. We saw our first dip yesterday in what we call the southbound truck crossings, but that's due to certain things that are happening, you know, as we say, you know, on the international front. And sometimes when the system fails or there are holidays in Mexico, the bridges across the board, not just in Pharr, they shut down earlier. The U.S. stays open, but Mexico unfortunately shuts down earlier. We don't have matching hours of operation. So that causes a disruption, and that causes certain amount of trucks not to cross. We'll make it up eventually, but things are going great. You know, where as a matter of fact, our car traffic has picked up. And now we're also reporting on the northbound car traffic as of last month, and we're seeing those numbers spike as well. So those are positive. That gives us a positive outlook for the future. And we're optimistic about the future. Regardless of the rhetoric, regardless of what's going on, you got to look at the background. You got to look at your history. You have to look at your numbers. Where were you and where are you today? One of the things that I've been talking about lately, Steve, is that when we did our study for the compound annual growth rate, if you go back to 2001 all the way to 2024, you're going to see an increase of about 21% growth in all those years. And in the last 4 years alone, we grew by 6 or 7%, right around there. So again, you have to look at that and see where we were, where we've been, particularly with COVID, and where we're going next. So we'll see what happens. There's still a lot of, a lot of unfinished business, as they say. We continue to see shifts in trade, in the economy. We still are not very clear on what's going to happen with future tariffs, if anything, or the reciprocal tariffs amongst all the other players with USMCA. But we're monitoring it very closely, and we're keeping very close also with our leadership to ensure that we make the right decisions going forward.
The other thing that interested me from the board meeting yesterday was how, when you gave an update on the second span, and I think you're at least 70% there now, just the way that you coordinate everything with Mexico, your counterparts in Mexico, Pharr doesn't operate on its own. It's working all the time with what's happening on the Mexican side, so that you don't get half the bridge built and then you're waiting for the other half to get things done. It's fully coordinated.
Absolutely. So when we look at the bridge and we talk about the Pharr International Bridge, I like to look at things as a system. It's a bridge system. It's several projects, investments, several process improvements, technologies, but it takes place on both sides of the border, and there are many key people, many impact players involved. The same thing goes for the folks that we coordinate with. It's a system of folks from different dependencies, different agencies across the board, mostly at the federal level, but it has to be binational, both in the U.S. and Mexico. There's the binational delegation that we present to every time there's an update. The last update that was given to the binational association, the binational delegation, was in Mexico City, and that was in March of 2024. My understanding, there's one coming up, so we will be there to update the delegation. Again, these are all federal folks, both U.S. and Mexico, that we give an update to. When you go up to this delegation, they basically tell you whether you're going in the right direction or whether you're not. Does it meet their needs? Does it not meet their needs? Do they have the personnel to cover it? Do they not have the personnel to cover it? Do you have the funding in place? Do you not have the funding in place? Fortunately for Pharr, we've been very fortunate that through our leadership, from our mayor, from our city management, through the directorship that we have here, we've been able to do things right to get us to that next level. But it's coordinating with all our federal partners in both U.S. and Mexico, because we want to make sure that we align. If we don't align, it's not going to happen. So our bridge, we're very fortunate. We were able to amend our presidential permit in 2020, and we did it in record-breaking time from October to December 2020. And here we are again, but we've been pushing forward. Mexico finished their portion of the bridge expansion about 3 or 4 months ago. They're fully operational now. It has not been officially stated, but we're going to get to that point once we finish our portion of the bridge. Right now, if you consider the current bridge and what Mexico has, like you said, it's about 70% of the bridge. Right now, we're at about roughly 30% of the construction on our end, maybe a little bit more. So it's coming along, and we will finish our portion of the bridge on the U.S. side by November of 2025.
And that information, the fact that you're able to tell, or the EDC, for example, is able to tell everyone 70% complete, will be fully operational by the end of the year. That must help your Economic Development Corporation colleagues in getting new developments near the bridge.
We work hand in hand. We have, I think it's even right behind me, the Pharr Border Business Advancement Initiative. You know, you'll see it there. That's a collaboration between the bridge, the chamber, and the EDC. And what that allows them to do is basically, because what do maquilas, what do manufacturers, what do companies want to do? When they come to us first, they want to know what's going on with the bridge, because if I'm going to buy a piece of land here, if I'm going to develop here, if I'm going to pay future property taxes here, create jobs here in the future, what is it that you're giving me as an advantage, as a benefit? Well, it's infrastructure in this case, but it's also, as I mentioned, process improvements, new technologies, but also the team, the expertise, and coordinating those expertise with our counterparts in Mexico in our case.
Last question. Any big trade shows, any visits to Mexico that you're making that you can tell us about?
Sure. So we always have what we call our travel calendar, or travel promotional calendar. We've been very fortunate to have gotten very far in that. In the last few years alone, we've been able to get to the national level with major associations. As you've heard me talk about before, we join just about every association that's out there. We're paying members of those associations, and we do that because that's how we learn. That's how we are engaged with the public sectors. I mean, with the private sector, our end users, right? If not, we will be doing a disservice to them because we're not learning from them. We're not doing anything for them. So based on those associations, we have the CAREM, which is the Mexico Customs Brokers Association. We've been participating with them since 2017, 2018. So we're going again this year. I believe that's sometime in June or July. We also have Index at the national level, not just Index Reynosa, but we have Index at the national level, and that's coming up, I think, in October of this year. We were there last year. So again, what that does, it gives us an opportunity to get in front of all these folks, and these are the decision makers. These are the folks that are going to see what you're working on. You're going to give them the truth. You're going to give them the facts. You're going to give them accuracy and information, and what that allows us to do is tell them that we're here. And we're here for the future, and we're talking about numbers, and we're talking about trade, and we're talking about what we're going to be doing going forward. Bridge Connect is an example of a value-added part of what we do, but what everybody wants is that bridge expansion. That's what everybody's been waiting for, and I'm happy to report again that we'll be done with that bridge. The contract ends at the end of this year, so we need to open, and that's where we're going with it.
I'm sure you would love two national presidents to be there to open it.
Well, that's in the works, yeah, obviously. We had spoken with the folks in Mexico a few months ago before they decided to open, because we wanted to see if they could do something back then. They could not make it official. Fortunately, it is open, but once we tie it in the middle, literally, physically tie that bridge up in the middle, because the U.S. is building that centerpiece, that middle part that connects over the river. Once we do that and we're ready to roll, then we'll start coordinating beforehand, but that's when we're hoping we can bring in both presidents, U.S. and Mexico, to ensure that we do things right.
Luis, this is an incredible interview. We've learned a lot. Have I missed anything out? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, sir. I think I've covered it all. Again, we're just very happy in the direction that we've been going. Obviously, we always thank our mayor, the city commission, and our bridge board and our city management, the directorship, for allowing us to continue moving forward. These are plans. These are our plans, but we're in God's hands. It's God's plans at the end of the day, so we have to follow His lead. And we've been very fortunate that He's been listening to our prayers, and that we're here now, and we're going to continue moving forward, trucking ahead, as they say.
Thank you so much for today's interview.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.